All right. So let's see that up there. I'm gonna start from the Unity hub like I always try to do. Let me go ahead and create project. A big thing for me is, see all that. A big thing for me is showing everything, even the parts that are not exciting. Creating a new project is not exciting, but if you've never done it, it might be a little intimidating. Part of my goal in making these 1 game per month videos is to help people see it doesn't have to be a super long process. It doesn't have to be even a super fancy game. It's really good to start something and finish it. That game loop process of making a new game from start to finish, even if it's simple, is so important. So important. You have to get in that loop of making a game, making a game, making a different game, making a different game, making a different game. Because if you just work on following the 87-part tutorial that you saw on YouTube, you're not going to learn how these things apply to your game. And that's a key thing that I want to teach people. So while it's loading, well, I guess I'm in the corner. I mean, I'll go back to full screen. You don't need to see the loading screen. It's so important to learn to make a full game. It's easy to start. It's hard to finish. Even a simple game. So many people just don't finish anything ever. And if you jump from project to project to project, you're never going to get the right kind of experience. When I was hiring a Unity programmer at the company I was at, my startup, and I was in charge of it, the person whose resume said that she had published an iPhone app in the App Store and published an app in the Google Play Store, both made with Unity, she went to the top of my choices immediately because she knew what was required. I looked at the apps. They weren't anything super fancy. Didn't matter. She knew the process. She'd been through the process before, and that's what we needed. We needed somebody that was able to finish things. It's easy to start things. It's hard to finish things. So we hired her, and I trained her up, and when I left, she took over. It was great. But she got hired primarily because she knew how to finish things, because she had apps published in both app stores. I was like, that's what we need. And other people said they have more experience doing this. They listed all these game projects, different things. Didn't matter. She knew how to finish. Over and over in the forums, I see people that know how to start things, they don't know how to finish. There's a great saying that you got the first 90%, and then you got the last 90%, which feels a lot like the first 90%. If you never finish a project, you're not going to experience that last part, which is so critical. There's so many things that you have to button up and finish up and decide, okay, it's not perfect, but I'm just going to do it this way anyway, that you miss out on if you just start a project. And then you have another idea and you start another project. And you have another idea and you start another project. And that's not bad unless you never finish anything. And then it is. All right, maybe next time I'll skip we're going to create a new Unity scene from scratch. But this, this project is all about teaching you how to start and finish a game. I show everything. This month, gonna have a special treat. I'm talking to a friend of mine who's an artist. I think we're gonna do some VR sculpting that will be used in the game. He and I are gonna get in VR together, even though hundreds of miles apart. And it's a program called Gravity Sketch that will let you be in the same virtual room and talk to each other and sculpt and see things. It's pretty cool. And we're going to build some characters, probably the boss and the ship. that will be used in this game, and I'll show you how we use them in this game. We're going to record all that. That'll be here. So let me talk for a moment about the Sidekick Scripts. The Sidekick Scripts, like superhero and a sidekick, not like I read your mind, psychic. Sidekick. The Sidekick Scripts are a collection of scripts that I've created, and it's what I use when I'm making a game, when I start making a game. It's a lot of the most common things that that are used. Let me go back and switch back over here. And while that is still loading, we've got click to clone, jump on click. So you click that, it creates a new one where that one is, jump on click. So I'll just show you. We make a scene, we create a scene. Sure. We make a plane, even though I really don't like making planes usually for my floors. I prefer a cube because the planes can be problematic, especially when you start getting into physics things. All right, not super easy to see, but there it is. Here's a cube. Also going to put that at 0, 0, 0. And zoom in on that. Can't see either one. That's okay. Gonna make a material. And went away. Where'd it go? Come on. All right. Gonna make a material. There we go. This green. Put it on the floor. It's blue for a moment. That's the URP kicking in. I'll call that green. Duplicate that. Make that red. Actually make it red. Drag that to the character. Really, I could just start here. All right, that is almost done. But I want to keep showing the superhero sidekick scripts real quick. So jump on click. If you hit play, there's nothing that happens here, nor should there be. I take this cube and I add a rigid body to it. Then physics and gravity will affect it. If I hit play, it's going to drop onto that plane. A very, very small amount. Boom. I can lift it up, it drops. Not interesting. But if I take jump on click and drag it onto there, it shows up over here. Now, if I hit play, that script will allow me to crank up the force amount. All right, 500. That's a high amount apparently. If I do 100, then it's less, but I can keep clicking on it and it'll keep going up. I mean, and that's one example. It's not super exciting. If I do click to clone, then there's 2, and they're still jumping. And so now as I click them, they're cloning and they're jumping. So it's easy to make things really, really quickly. If I put that on, it's going to move and it's going to wrap around. I'll do some more videos on the Sidekick scripts, but they can be a lot of fun. So anyway, so I start with a couple of these in most projects like this one because that's how I start most of my projects. All right, Unity is ready. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I am not going to save. I've already got, there's 2 in particular, move and wrap with parameters and player move and shoot. It's almost like using a cheat code using these scripts. Let's see. Don't need all this stuff that it puts in there. Really need the settings. I don't know why I put all this stuff in and delete it. It's fine. All right. Make one of my other changes real quick. Edit and preferences. No, sorry. Project settings. And then we're going to go to editor. We're going to scroll down here, enter play mode options, and leave these unchecked, reload domain and reload scene. That's going to make a huge difference in how long it takes to load things. My play mode tint is set to be a little bit pink. So when I hit play, the whole screen goes a little bit pink. So I know I'm in play mode. You know what a big deal that is. If you've watched my other videos, you know what a big deal that is. If you're familiar with Unity, if you're not familiar with Unity, you might not realize, but basically nothing in play mode stays. So this way it changes to pink when play mode is on. To remind you. All right, I'm just going to call that URP settings and drag that in. So here's a brand new scene. I've rearranged the area like I like it to be. This is not going to be a completely beginner from scratch tutorial. I do have one on my channel about creating a game in Unity 2020 that is very good. If I say so myself. That's a great place. I go over components, game objects, and scripts, and all that stuff. For now, I'm going to make a couple of folders. I'm going to make one called scripts. I have that, and I'm just going to right click and make another one. I'm going to call that materials. We've already got one called scenes, so that's good. I'm going to right click and show in Explorer. There, don't need the navigation panel. Scripts go inside that. I'm going to come to, there's two in particular, move and wrap with parameters, player move and shoot. SK for Sidekick. And I'm going to copy those and come over here and paste. Might use like the click and countdown. Yeah, I'll probably just start with these two. Let's come back into Unity. It's going to take a second to recompile. Now, having added those two scripts into place, we're going to rename them and stuff later. But first, let me show you how powerful these are. It's like a cheat code. All right, so I want to start. I want to make a let's make a quad for the floor. Floor. Rotate 90 degrees. Not that 90 degrees. Go. Make it 20 by 20. Yeah, it's fine. It's a little. Oh, okay. I see. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to make a cube. 20.2, 20. That's what I want right there. I like cubes because it has more thickness and the collisions work better. I'm going to make a new material called floor. Doesn't really matter. Usually I give them a floor green like grass or something. That floor. Going to make a couple of objects. Going to make a cube that is here. That is going to be, I can already tell I'm going to need to move the camera out. That's fine though. This is going to be a player. It needs to be smaller. And just trying to think of how I want this scene to sort of look. Bring the field of view down a little bit just to give a little bit more space. Can move things down, move the camera around a little bit. Trying to get it to look a little better. Yeah, that's a little better. All right, and scale that out. So it takes up the side of the screen. Move this back. All right, just using shortcuts W, E, and R. Move, scale, and rotate. Move, rotate, and scale. All right, player down here. Right, so far we've got nothing. Add a rigid body script. Just hit add component and typed in rigid body. I do want to use gravity, and now I'm going to take player move and shoot and just drag that over. Now if I hit play, we now have some movement. It's a little slow. It's still a little slow. That's not terrible. I don't hate it. Still seems a little slow. That feels better. So a lot of your game is just going to be trying out some different things and seeing what feels better. Now everything is pink, so I know I'm in play mode. I'm going to copy that, come out of play mode, paste that back in. So now that is there. That'll always be that speed. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this the boss. I'm going to move it up. We got something up here. So by duplicating it, it stays on the same plane, which is nice. I'm probably going to change the camera around later to give us a little more play area, but this is fine. Everything's kind of close there. Doesn't matter. I don't want player move and shoot. What I want is move and wrap with parameters. Let's give that a move speed of like 5. All right, so we've got 2 cubes. I should turn off gravity because the boss does not need gravity. All right. Now I've got a player at the bottom and I've got a boss at the top. Literally drag and drop 2 scripts that quick. And it literally took us longer to create the cubes in the scene than it did to get some interaction. All right. So this is a good start. Let's do this. I've also got a game object here called Geo Bullet, or game object bullet. So let's take a look at these 2 scripts. I don't really advocate just copying and pasting scripts without knowing what they do. So with how much functionality we've already got in here, you might think, man, those scripts must be complicated. I mean, this is practically a game already. Let's take a look. Player move and shoot. First, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to hit F2, which is the Windows rename hotkey for files. Works here as well. You can also just simply click it to select it and then click it again. And I'm going to call this Space Player. Why not? And I'm going to hit F2. So it does that stuff. I'm going to call it Space Boss. Space Boss. Now, I'm going to double click Space Player. If you know anything about Unity, you know that these script names have to match the class names exactly, or things will not work. I'm going to double click that. Go into Visual Studio, and whatever version of Visual Studio you have, or VS Code works fine. This class name has to match that file exactly, case sensitive. So I'm going to rename that Space Player, then we're good to go. So what does it do? How long is it? It's not very long, and we're only using about half of what's here. So public variable, I ranted on that last time, won't this time. We have a move speed. We have a reference to a transform is the type. This transform is the name. Game object is the type. Geo bullet. Geo short for game object. We're not using that yet. Let's start. Get a reference to the transform object. Put a debug note. I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. We don't need that. Then update once per frame, or think constantly. This is called once. At the beginning, when you hit play, this is called constantly. Everything inside of update. So we want to get the current position. We're holding down A or the left arrow, the X. We want to set a new position to the same thing as it was, minus move speed. and assign the new position. Same thing here. They're holding down D, current X position plus move speed. So it just moves side to side, but that's fine. That's all we need. And then we've got if spacebar, then if there is no game bullet yet, drop a message to remind us and say, hey, something's missing. The other code is it'll instantiate a bullet and it'll do it at the current object's transform. And it will set that object to true. And I'll show you why we do this in a minute. And then you want to set the transform parent of the new object to be null. This puts it out on the main timeline, not as a child object. And if you want the bullets to move independently of the ship, you got to have that line in there. Actually, I don't know if it defaults to, I think it will, because I usually do the bullet as a child, so that's a good line to have in there. And we might even do a power up where you've got like guided bullets and put that back. Let's see, and then there's another one called Space Boss, which needs to be called Space Boss. For advanced version, very simple. Again, we've got a speed, we've got a maximum X and a minimum X, and we get the position, we get the X of the current position. If it's less than min X, set it to max X. If it's greater than max X, set it to min X, and set the speed. I set the position, current X, which we just calculated over here, and current Y and Z. That's it. Not a lot of code for how much functionality we've already got. Say the Sidekick scripts are like a cheat code. That's what we've got. If I hit spacebar, it's logging a warning that says, hey, there's no bullet assigned. Let's fix that. First, I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to do Control-Shift-S. I'll also do File Save As. I'll leave sample scene as was. And I'm going to call this November 2023 Space Invader. No, I'll call it Galaga. It's whatever. Space Invaders is probably more well known. Doesn't matter. Galaga 01. And I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to Control D to duplicate and make number 2. Then I'm going to double click to enter into that and double check up here. Sure that we are in 02. So next thing we want to do is we want to make a bullet. So I'm going to create a 3D object, create a cube, and start with, so if the player is 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, I might want to make this 0.25, copy that and paste that in all 3. So we have a tiny bullet there. That might even be still too big. It's fine. I guess that works. We've got a floor material. I'm going to duplicate that. Call that player bullet. And what we can do, we can just, let's just do this. I'm going to make a player color. That'll be blue. I will assign that to the player, and I will assign that to the cube. Come on. There. And there. So now the player bullet is the same color as player. I'm going to make the player bullet a child of the player object and want to set it to 0, 0, 0, which being a child object is going to make it 0, 0, 0 relative to the player. Player bullet selected. I can come over here and hit F to zoom in, and we see it's right in the middle. And that is going to be our bullet. So it's a couple of things that you need. So we want to make it move. We want to check for collisions. The big thing that we're going to need to do first is simply to add some kind of a script that gives it movement. So I can take this player boss script. Yeah, I'll probably do that. In all these videos, I don't promise I'm going to write every script from scratch. I do promise I'm going to show you the way that I do things. I've been doing Unity almost 15 years. I've used it in personal, professional projects. I've made a ton of projects, games, non-games. I'm showing you the way that I work because it is a battle-proven way of working. This is how I work. I go, yeah, this kind of has some pieces of what I want. I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to call that bullet. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to have to rename it. And make sure that that matches that. All right, so we've got a move speed. We've got a max X and min X. We're not going to need those anymore because we're not moving side to side and we don't want anything really to loop around. So delete that. Simple moving bullet. We want to get the current position. And this time, actually, we want to move in the, we're not sure, we can grab our object and say, I want it to go up and down. And we look over here and see that the Y is what's moving up and down. I clicked and dragged, and I'm still seeing it. Click right on that arrow and move it, and that'll constrain it. You see, oh, okay, I want it to move. I pretend the bullet is here, and then it goes up. Then, okay, I want it to move up. So we know that we're dealing with the Y. Don't need all that. We've got the current position, and we want to do the current. Let's see. So we'll make this to be the same as the others. Curve pos X. Now we're going to do curve pos Y plus move speed times time delta in delta time. This just helps sort of smooth it out over the frames. So that's there. Then we want to take that script and drag it onto bullet script. Now go here. Now, this is problem. One, my main bullet is rising. Two, all my other bullets are spawning off of that. So remember that little line of code? Set active true. Well, that's because we want this bullet to be active. We want it to be set active false, which is you go and you click that. So now the player bullet will always be there. That's always the one that we started with. What was happening was it was moving, but we're instantiating it, and it was instantiating from this one. So if this one gets destroyed or something or moves, it always does it from there. Now it's always going to instantiate it from where it's at in the middle. Now it's kind of jumping around because my player is set. They're all going around crazy because this has a collider and this has a collider. So probably what we want to do is set this to be a trigger player. The difference between colliders and triggers is that when a collider hits an object and a collision happens, it's going to move something. The trigger can pass through, you can detect it in code, but it's not going to affect the trajectory of the other thing. The other thing you can do, you can go into the rigid body and freeze the rotation, so that it doesn't rotate around. But with the player set to be a trigger, this also should be fine. I'm going to leave that. That is a trigger. You don't need both of them as a trigger. If one is a trigger, you're good to go. That, if I save that, hit play. Nope, that's right. If it's triggered, it's going to fall through the floor unless you've got his kinematic set. So yeah, just run with. Oh, I could also turn off use gravity. So I can leave it a trigger. It's fine. The bullet is a trigger. Gravity's not on there. That's what we want. So I move back and forth. Hit space. They move. They move very, very, very slowly. That does not work. So we go, okay, let's make that move speed to be higher. So maybe something like that. So maybe a move speed of like 20, and I'm just hitting play to try it out. That's not a bad speed. It might be a little fast. I'm gonna go with 18. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back off. So now it will only spawn when I hit spacebar. That is a pretty fast bullet. The other thing I'm going to do before we wrap up here today is what you don't want is a bunch of bullets flying out forever. And that is exactly what we've got. If we look, if we zoom out, all these bullets are going way, 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 way up, which is bad because they're still moving. So if you go to the top one here, they're all still moving, which means it's having to track all that. The script is running each time. It will get slower and slower and slower. So there's a couple things you can do. You can set it once it gets to a certain height, turn it off. I just like to put a game object, create another cube, and call it Death Wall. So that sounds exciting. And set it so that it's there, over, it's above everything. And I'm going to turn off the mesh renderer for it so it will not be seen. So now bullets will fly up. Right now they go through it because they are triggers. So we need a script. Add a C# script called Death on Touch. Death on Trigger really, but that's fine. Double click that. Don't need any of this. Void on trigger enter. Collider other. Other dot game object. That is the other game object. Well, we want to destroy other game object. Save that. Because these are triggers, so we have to have on trigger enter. Play. And then the bullets should spawn, go up, they hit that, and then they disappear. Not working. Let's see. Other dot game object. Oh, I didn't put the script on there. Death on touch. And it's still not working. Beautiful. All right. Did I do wrong? Maybe that needs to be a trigger. I don't remember. Nope. Let's see. It's trigger, contacts, blah, blah, blah. Trigger enter. All right. So it's going to say log. They may be moving too fast. Just hit game object main. So if they're hitting too fast, what we want to do is other on trigger stay is the other one that we can do. Oh, you know what? I think I have to have a rigid body on there as well for it to be triggering. Not gravity, is kinematic. I think that was the problem. There we go. Like I said, you get to see it all. You know, even though I've been doing this 15 years, yeah. If I made triggers every day, I would remember. I don't. I've also been doing this a long time, so sometimes I forget. Yeah. All right. So you make your bullets spawn, and stop. That's going to do it for this session. I hope that was helpful. My goal here is to teach you how to make one full game per month. Sidekick scripts are kind of like a cheat code. I use them. You should use them too. You will get the ones that I include in this. So what I'll do is I will package up, I'll make a Unity package for today's scene files. As we ended, go to superherocoding.com, sign up on the email list, and by tonight I will send out a link with this video and the scripts, everything the way my scene ended, so you can just grab that and play around with it. So love to hear your thoughts, and I'm Greg.